Hello, welcome back to my channel. There was some interest expressed in showing how I did signatures, how I sewed them in. So I finally have my Creep-On June mostly ready. It's a bit of a gator mouth already, and I do have to go through and add tags to a bunch of things, so I think it's going to wind up quite chunky. So what I start with is obviously a journal. I have a bunch of these little pieces of paper already set up and ready to go. Basically the right size for a book like this, as far as height is concerned, and as far as spine depth is concerned, because most of these are quite similar. This one maybe could be a little bit wider because of the width of the, let me try to get these out of the way. And all of this. I will explain what this is for in a minute. So I could make this a little bit wider. One of the problems about making it wider is your piece of paper can't be any wider than the depth of your, or width of your spine, however you want to term it. So if I add one square, it won't be centered with the little holes. If I use this one as it is like this, then it will work. There'll be a little bit of a gap front and back, which is fine, because what I'll do is I'll center it inside of my spine. What I use to make these, if you want to make your own, is just 1/4-inch grid graph paper. I pick it up at the thrift store all the time. Hilroy has it. This one is from Staples. That's 1/4 inch. I'm going to just use the one that I've got because it's already cut out, but it would be really easy to just cut a piece the width that you need, and then make the holes in it as needed. Just pretend that what I did is folded it in half, drew holes in it, used the grid markers, put the same amount of width in between each one of the holes, except for this one because I couldn't count, so it's the bottom one of that. And that gives me the same approximate depth. I think it's the bottom. Let me double check. 5, 6, and that would be 7. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, so it's the bottom one of this. And the reason that I marked top is you'll notice that there are 2 and a bit holes on this one, and exactly 2. I could cut that little extra off the top so it's exactly 2 and 2. You can do that if you want it to be exactly correct. My second step is I need to prep a spine, so something wide enough to fit in here. You want a piece of cardstock. Doesn't matter what it looks like because it's going to be covered, but it does need to be the width of your piece of paper, so, or what will be your spine. This spine is a template only, it's not going to go on, so I can see by putting that on my grid mark that that's 2.5 inches wide. So I'm going to use a ruler and an X-Acto knife. You could use a trimmer, you could use your, if you've got one of the Tim Holtz cutters, you could use that. This is just as easy. So, piece of cardstock, And this is going to, I am going to do what's called a hidden spine so that I can maintain the spine of the book. And I will cover the spine of the book once everything is in. That will be the last thing I do. Normally it's the first thing I do, because normally I sew my signatures in first. And you can see that fits quite nicely in there. A little bit of a gap between the covers, like I said, but that's quite fine. It just means that you've got more room to put ephemera, that kind of thing, in there. Once you have that, you want to pick, these will come in a minute. You want to pick some fabric to cover this. And what you want, I am going to keep bringing my cover in and out so that you can kind of see my desk as I work. What you want is you want your spine to be on the back side, the way that I do it. And this is with a hidden spine. And then you're going to glue your fabric to that piece of cardboard. And what I do is I kind of test out fabric, so I have a few. So I have one with a stripe, which I think is just a bit, I don't know, stripey. Little gingham. These are, they sell wallpaper, so like an interior designer type place. So these are some options that I picked out. I like this one because it goes with the color of it. And I'm leaning towards this one because I'm starting with her. And it just, I think those go really well together. You're going to see almost none of your fabric. But it will peek through in the spine because there's about 1/4 of an inch between each one of your signatures. So a tiny bit of this fabric is going to show through. And I'm really, really like this. It's, that's where I bought it. I've had it for years. You can tell, $1.99. Like, I'm not going to find a fat quarter for $1.99 anywhere. And this is one of those Civil War replica fabrics. I don't know if the name of it is on here. Yes. I don't know if you can still get it. It's called Briarcliff by Audrey Wright of Legacy. And then I also have this pinstripe one, which I really like because it kind of replicates, well, pinstriping. What do they call that? Pillow tuck stuff? The stuff that's got the wider stripes. But I am definitely going to go with this one because it's pretty, and pretty wins. You don't need very much of this. In fact, you need very little. What you want is you want wide enough that you can come out. You're going to glue this to your end papers. You can try to preserve your end papers if that's your preference. But then you're not doing a hidden spine because you need the strength of the fabric to hold your signatures in your book. Otherwise, nothing is holding it in your book. Like, nothing at all. So I've gone over about 1/3 of my cover on each, on this side. So I'll go about 1/3 of my cover over on this side as well. Changed my mind. I want this flower to go up and down. Also, if you don't want these the way that tears like that, cut it with a rotary cutter or your scissors. Scissors are not as much fun. So this is too high. It only needs to be as high as the book. So I'm going to cut it a little bit longer and then probably trim it off later. I pull all the little edgy bits of fabric off or thread because I don't like them. All right. So what I want to do is I want to glue. I'm going to move my cover out of the way for a while because I don't need it. I want to glue my little piece of cardstock more or less in the middle of the fabric. So, water, Gorilla Glue. This is what I like to use. Gorilla Glue is a PVA glue, which is why I use it. And the water will help it move and keep from getting those big, like, if you use something like art glitter glue or Barely Arts glue, even glue stick, you can get glue blobs on your fabric, which I am going to put on the interior side of my spine, so I don't want the glue to show. So just a flat brush, I'm going to mix the glue and water together to kind of make a slurry. It will be quite wet. You can add more glue if you need to. You want it to be quite watery, but not horrifically watery. This is trial and error. You kind of get used to how much glue you need. One of the properties about paper is it expands when it gets wet. So once it dries, it contracts and should hold whatever you've glued to it. That's one of the reasons for doing it like this. And just like so. If you think you don't have enough glue, add more. And you can add glue directly to your water. And I'm just eyeballing it. Because I've sewn for so long, I can tell what's straight on, like, where the grain is on fabric. Now this needs to dry, so I am going to move this out of the way. So I have 5 signatures here. So I have a pile of paper clips. You can get these big ones at, used to be able to get these big ones at Dollar Tree. I don't know if you can anymore, but you can get these on Temu and they're exactly the same paper clip. In fact, these probably came from the same place these did. What I do is I try to figure out where I want my pages. Like, do I want all the little pages at the bottom, at the top? Normally I don't have them decorated, so it doesn't matter. I just, like, put them in and paper clip them. And I'm realistically going to do it the same way because that's what works. Some of the pages are going to be a different size, doesn't matter. The reason I use the long paper clips is it holds everything. It will hold both your tall and your short pages. So I just put 2 in, one at the bottom, one at the top, like so. Close it up for now and then just stack them in a corner until I'm ready for them. And I do that with all of them. Now, what you want to do is you want to grab your awl, which is supposed to be right there, and be very aware of where your T is. Very important. And you're just going to take your center line of this, line it up so that it will catch as much of your signatures as you can. And you can see that this page, when you trim it off, it just fits inside the 5. It's all my pages that are coffee dyed or ledger paper are larger and are definitely going to fit inside. You can move this around a little bit so that it fits better. One of the reasons for doing 5 holes in a journal is if you have short pages, which I do in almost all the journals, 3 out of your 5 should catch, and you need 3 out of 5 signatures, or at least 2 out of the 5 holes to catch in order for your signature not to wiggle around. And then all I do is I just pick a hole and I push it through by pinching it. And I do it after I've picked the hole. And you can see that that comes out directly in the middle. So I'm going to pause and do all of these so that you don't have to be bored while I put 5 holes and 5 signatures, which would be 25 holes. 25 holes. Yeah, that would be a bit much. So I'm going to put a little T on the top of the interior of this. And I should probably let this dry a little bit more. But you know, filming, so. I get a little piece of styrofoam. And I am going to lay this on here. And get a small paper clip and just paper clip it to the top in the center. Or off center, like so. Be careful if you do that it goes in between the holes, because you need to poke your holes. So I just put that styrofoam underneath my, where the paper is. And I am just going to punch straight through, straight up and down. And basically what I'm doing is I'm using the force of the awl and I'm pushing until I can feel my mat underneath, and that will give me nice deep holes in my cloth, which is fairly important. I work from the center out just in case that glue isn't dry and things shift. It's one of the reasons you kind of want your glue to dry. No, that's not shifting. I'm good. I did not poke that one. Take your little piece of paper off because you don't need it anymore. That Gorilla Glue dried really quickly. I'm pretty happy with that. Normally I let it sit overnight, but that's pretty good. So you can start front to back, back to front, up to you. I think maybe like that color on there. Doesn't matter, it's not going to show. It will show in your signatures, But I think that should work fairly well. The other one that might work well, because you've got some red in there, I have a whole container of these waxed linen threads. Oh, yeah, no, let's go with that reddish one, that burgundy one, because that picks up some of that red in there. And there's red on the fabric as well, so that would be really cool. Now for pins, or for sewing in the signatures, I have a collection of darning needles. They are a bit wider, they're blunt and short, and the tip of them is blunt. And I find that to be very, very important when I'm sewing in signatures. If the needle is sharp, it will pierce your fabric and can pierce your thread. And you'll get better success getting this in and out of your holes if the needle is blunt. You can either go 3 of your signature length with thread, or 2.5, whichever you're comfortable with. I tend to go 2.5, and you can just cut all of them to begin with, because all your signatures are the same. You don't have to do one at a time. You can just do all 5. Because then you can put your thread away and get it off your table. One less thing to get in your way. So what I do, now that I've got all of these, there's holes in all of these, there's holes in all of these. The holes in these should match the holes in these. Should. And I start at the back and work to the front. Don't ask me why. I think I saw a video of it somewhere, so I have in my head that that's the way that you're supposed to do it. Doesn't matter. So what you want to do is you want to go through, determine, the first thing you want to do is you want to determine you're doing a hidden spine. So do you want to come from the back of your spine? Be very careful. You've got your top here. You don't want this to show. This is the inside, so this is the back of your spine. This is the front of your spine. Do you want to come from the back side of your spine through your signature? This is harder. This is the harder way to do it. Like so. And it's harder because you can't, I don't know, your needle is going to be very resistant going through that hole the very first time. Like, very resistant. Like so. And then your knots will be on the back. When you come out, leave a tail. When you're doing a 5-hole, well, it doesn't matter. Leave about, that's about 2, maybe 2.5 inches. So what you want to do, think of it like a snake. You're going in and out, in and out. So you have come out your middle hole. You're going to go in your second hole. And in your second hole that matches on your signature. So you can see first hole, second hole, like so. Pull through. You want to make sure it's fairly snug, but it is going to move all over everywhere while you're doing it. And this thing, I rotate it like all over everywhere as I'm working on it. So you're going to go out. So you've gone in, back out. Now you're going to go in the top hole. Think of it like an S or a snake. Like so, and come back out. So if you were doing a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, you would go all the way back to where you started, but you can't do that because what you need to do is you need to connect all the dots, basically. So you want to go back in this hole, which is your 2nd hole. And this is where it gets a little trickier because you now have a lot more holes to make sure that you don't pierce your waxed thread. But you can tell because you wouldn't be able to pull anything if you'd pierced anything. Now, you're not going to go back in this hole. You're going to skip the middle hole for now. You will come back out this at the very end, but you're going to skip it for now. So now you're going to go into the 2nd hole from the bottom and come out on the inside of your signature on the matching 2nd hole from the bottom. Providing I can find it, which is always the challenge. There it is. So again, you could probably want to pull it a little bit just to make sure that it's snug at this point in time, because it gets a little tricky with a 5-hole to make sure all your cords are tight everywhere. Now you want to come out at the very bottom hole and the corresponding very bottom hole on your fabric. Other thing to make sure is that you don't skip from one line up and down to another line up and down. So don't, when you come out this one, don't come out this one or this one or that one. So now you're going to go back so that we've joined the line so that it's like an unbroken line on this side. Again, making sure that you don't pierce that thread at all and come through. So now what you have is you've got 1, 2, 3, and I can tell I split that. Totally split that. Can you see how that comes through that? Actually, I don't need to do that. I am just going to go like that. And now it's not split. So now what I want to do is I want to go back into the center and come out at the end. And this is the same way that you would do it if you did a 3-hole pamphlet stitch. So you're just going to go into your center, making sure that you're not splitting anybody. Come out the middle. And the same as a 3-hole pamphlet stitch, again, make sure you don't split your cord. And make sure that you've got one tail on one side and one tail on the other side. And give it a gentle pull, and it should tighten everything up. You want it to be fairly snug, but not, it doesn't have to be completely snug. If you pull it too tight, your papers will bow and it will look really funny. Tie a square knot, which is left over right and under, and then right over left and under. And I usually do it 3 times just because I'm obsessive that way. And I put my little scissors underneath all my signatures so that I couldn't see it. And here I can cut that fairly short one of the advantages to putting this on the inside is now you've got a clean, unbroken line in your signature, and it's like beautiful. So all you see is like you can hardly tell that anything was put in there. If you can do it the other way and tie it in here and put dangles on it. It's totally up to you, like totally up to you. So I'll show you this again because the 5-hole can be a bit complicated, or a little bit more complicated than a 3-hole. So the second one, just be very careful that it comes in that second hole like so, that you've got it facing right side up. When you come through here, you're wiggling this thing around all over everywhere. I turn it backwards and forwards and up and down. So I really do need to make sure that I've got my signatures in the way that I want them to, as I'm going along. Again, leave about 2 inches, 2.5 inches of tail. Just don't leave too much and don't leave too little, because as you're yanking it, you might wind up pulling it out. So you've come out the center when you're going 1 hole down and coming back out on the back side, like so. And you can kind of pull that a little bit if you want it to be sure it's tight. Go in the bottom hole or top hole. You can go the other way. You can do it either way. As long as you think of it as doing it like a snake or S, you're fine. Come out the corresponding hole, like so. So now you have, sorry about that. So now you have part of your signature sewn in, little thread. Make sure I'm on the right signature. So now what you want to do is you want to come back to this hole so that you join this, same as like you've got the corresponding on the back. You're going to do the one on the front. And it can be easier if you open your signatures a little bit so that you can see in between that little 1/4 inch gap. And again, make sure you don't pierce that thread when you come through. And come out. Pull it a little bit snug. This is when you want to tighten it up on a 5-hole because it's harder to do at the end. Yeah, no, I got that right. Now you're going to skip the center and go up to the second one from the top or bottom. Depends upon which way you're doing it. And come out corresponding hole in your signature. Being silly. And then the top and the top, like so. And again, I want to come to this one because I want to close this gap, and then I'm going to come out through the center for the end. So I'm going to go in here. Like so. and then through the center. And out the back. It's like, is that the hole or is that the flower? And make sure that that's tight, and it's not, so make sure I didn't split that because it is not tightening. It's really funny. As soon as I turn the camera off, it's like, oh, you wanted me to be here? Okay. So I'm going to continue and sew in the remaining 3 signatures and come back when that's done. If I ever make noise about doing a fully decorated signature or journal before I sew it in, remind me how much fun that was. I'm being just a smidgen sarcastic because it was not fun at all. But it's done, and it's chunky already, and I still have to put some tags in there. So the next thing I do once I do that is I sew the spine in. You can do this 2 ways. You can glue it to the back in here, or you can just glue your fabric down. That's a little bit trickier because it's only your fabric that's going to adhere it to your journal. Hopefully that's not too bad on the camera because that's pretty tall. So if you're only going to glue it to your back, you're only going to glue the fabric on first. So you would glue one side on, fully allow it to dry, and you would put your fabric down flush. You'd put your make sure your cardboard is, or spine is, centered in here, and then adhere your fabric so that it sticks, and weight it down, and then hold all of this up as a book block while this is drying. Once this is 100% dry, then you're going to do the second side. And in a sense, if you're doing it that you adhere your spine to your cover, same process. I have the glue, it's wet. I think it'll be fine if I adhere it to the back. I like that. The glue is wet. In other words, it hasn't dried in here completely yet. So you can also put Tyvek on your spine to reinforce it if you want, or book fabric stuffy. And I need to make sure that I get this centered, so just a minute. Pardon me if this gets in your way, because there should be about 1/4 of an inch gap. Don't spill glue all over your desk, Linda. Now, it does not seem like it's at all glued down, because technically it's not. It's wet and nothing is glued. So while you have some playtime, use your bone folder and come in here and just like smoosh it in between your signatures. And it is not going to seem very glued, but you're going to use weights and the the book itself, and you're going to let the glue dry 100% so that it's hard, and you need to let that glue dry at least overnight. So you're going to take your book like so, and you're going to find as much heavy stuff on your desk as you can find. I have no heavy stuff. All my heavy stuff is elsewhere. So I am going to leave this at, for now, and I'm going to find heavy stuff, and I'm going to hold my book in place overnight. Much like this. So until next time, have a lovely crafty day. Bye.